Alan Pierce.
Okay, good morning. Some of my narrative on the restore stuff is just more background, but I thought I'd just get it in the minutes. I apologize for being a little more long-winded than sometimes I am. Item number one, inform the board that Friday, June 21st, I received a telephone call from U.S. Treasury personnel. They informed me that due to some internal complications at Treasury, Franklin County's Restore Planning Grant is now slated to be effective August 1. I had previously informed the board that we thought it would be July 1. Treasury staff is finalizing the planning grant documents. The documents should be delivered in time for the board to approve them at the July 19th meeting. I will not be at the meeting, but Stella Wilson from Dewberry will be there to present the documents. But we think it's just a matter of signatures because basically the Treasury is going to tell us what we're going to do. Item number two, inform the board that also on June 24th, the consortium received notice that its planning grant was approved. As the board may recall, the consortium has already voted that the funds coming to the consortium, known as Pot 3, will be divided equally among the 23 counties. Each county, including Franklin County, will get some $11.7 million. The challenge for the consortium is to decide how to disperse these funds, as the funds coming into Pot 3 will come in over a 15-year period, because what county is going to be willing to wait 10 to 15 years to get its allocation? The consortium should be discussing this dilemma at its next meeting, and Commissioner Sanders, who was at the consortium meeting, they may have talked about it briefly, and I don't know, I haven't had time to talk to you.
There's nothing new.
There's
nothing new that much.
Okay. I have been informed that the consortium consultants will be soon sending out forms to each of the counties requesting guidance on how each county expects to send its money. As I understand it, this request is going to be a big picture request, as it is possible counties will have projects that are not yet designed or permitted and therefore will not need funds immediately, which will help in the allocation. The Pot 3 funds will be handled as a reimbursement, so the board will need to have high assurance from the consortium that reimbursement will be rapidly processed, because Franklin County does not have vast cash reserves to finance projects. So we need to make sure that the money is in the bank so that when we draw down, we're not caught, because we're going to have to pay a contractor or whatever our project is. So I just put that on the notice. For the $11.7 million coming to Franklin County through the consortium, Franklin County will not be dealing with the U.S. Treasury directly, as each county will be considered a subrecipient. The funds will first go to the state of Florida or the consortium, I'm not sure who's going to actually get them, who will then enter into contracts with each of the 23 counties on how the funds will be spent. So over the next 10 to 15 years, the board will be dealing with two sets of projects. One project funded by consortium rules and guidelines, and then a second set of projects funded by Pot 1 funds and controlled directly by the U.S. Treasury. In the discussion with other county restore coordinators, the trend appears to be that counties are developing plans for a few large projects, because counties are learning that the Treasury requirements and administrative responsibilities are such that the counties are calculating they will need more than 3% of the cost to properly administer restore projects in accordance with the Treasury. So small projects are either going to be aggregated into one large project, but the other counties are ahead of us in this planning timeline, or realizing that they're going to have to supplement admin costs and add more taxes unless they put projects together. So this is something we just need to be mindful of as we go down the line. All right, so that's just for background. Hopefully by August we will get this notice from the consortium. I don't know, Madam Commissioner, when the next consortium meeting is. Maybe in September.
It'll be September.
Okay, so we have a little bit of time, but you can be thinking about big timelines. And I don't have the guidance, Commissioner Sanders may, on what consortium money can be spent on. And maybe it's the same things as our Pot 1.
They didn't really talk about that. It was just ESA,
Okay.
giving the update and all. They got the a little over $4 million for the planning money and all that. So that was basically what was all involved.
Okay, so I'm sure the notice will give us some more guidelines. But the idea of what I understand was that by the September consortium meeting, they would have, the ESA would like to have a general idea of what counties are looking at, and so they can maybe help guide the consortium how they vote on how this money is going to come in. Because with the money coming in over a timeline, everybody's going to want their projects first. Now, one possibility is, and I say this without any inside knowledge, is that it's possible that the Triumph money could be used as, because that's going to be cash on hand. The state of Florida is going to get $300 million, and the legislature, the Speaker of the House has promised that $300 million to go to the 8 counties. So it's possible that us 8 counties could have the Triumph money as a funding source, and then as over time, that money will go back in and replace Triumph. I don't know if it's going to happen.
I don't know how that's going to evolve now that we've disbanded the 8 counties.
Right.
We've disbanded the 15, disproportionate counties. I don't know how that's gonna play, so, I mean, it's gonna be an ever evolving thing.
Right.
Well, did they keep the 15 counties on, or they back to the 8?
No. See, what it was is, they just did away with the 8 counties.
Right.
They did away with the 15 counties. We're still there. And it, you know, the 8 counties know, and the 15 counties need to know that if they need to get together, they can. Get to 23 counties, and instead of it 8 affected, 15 disproportionate. And that way, it can just, I think they're trying to cut down the rift in it, you know, a little bit. But it does not keep us from meeting,
Right.
you know, all 8 counties meeting, or 15 counties.
I know it's so confusing, like I've
It
been
is, it's
smoking
bad.
and talking, because Marion County, or whatever it was on
Mr.
70
George Nugent.
Yeah, on
Mhm.
75%, you remember after it was over?
That's all off of there
Yeah.
now.
Well,
Yes.
And this was one of the reasons why everybody wanted everybody to be equal. We're not equal, but, you know, but
Can I-
anyway, it was a recommendation to go ahead and disband the 2 committees, so.
Yes, sir. Are you saying
Well,
the 300 million, excuse me, the 300 million coming to the legislature this year is the Triumph Fund?
Yes,
That is the Triumph money?
that's part of it, yes. There's 1.5 billion, I think it is, and the first 300 million is going to come into this next legislative session, and the legislatures have promised that money to go to the 8 impacted counties.
They're not saying nothing about the whole billion, just the first 300
Right.
million.
Well, Smokey, what was the pot that the guy from Newberry was telling me, and you the other pot?
There's a whole lots of pots.
I know, but the one with me and you was talking about the morning at the meeting.
That's
Right,
it.
this,
That was
what
NERDA.
Alan's what Alan's referring to though is the 300 million that I was talking to him about.
Okay.
That we need to get projects vetted, we need to have all this stuff done so that we can submit our list of projects to come out of Triumph when the legislature convenes this year. And Alan's made the suggestion that we need to start meeting also at the previous meeting. This $300 million speeds that timeline up some.
It might, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out where is this money going to come from, because everybody's going to want their money up front. Well, the
Well, and
Triumph
they-
money is going to be
But-
sitting.
But the Triumph Fund is totally different than the
It is.
consortium pot.
It is, I
What
realize
I'm
that.
speaking of is the 300 million that's coming to the legislature this year.
And that's
And
Triumph.
that's the 8 counties.
Yes, that's
Which is
correct.
entitled to the Triumph money. We
That's-
need to have projects properly vetted, public hearings on it, so the public can have input, and we need to have a list of projects ready to go. If you don't, these other counties, other 7 counties are gonna have projects ready to go, and they're gonna deplete the fund. We're entitled to that money too, a portion of it. So we need to have some projects, aside from the consortium pot, which is only so much a year, this is money you can draw on this year, but we gotta be prepared for that. So I spoke to Dewberry,
Okay.
Brian, about that this week down at the conference, that we need to start moving forward, and these don't need to be, $100 projects.
No, these economic development projects,
Yeah.
right.
That we need to put forward and start moving along with, because, you know, we need to get our share of them funds on behalf of
I
the people.
thought we had our committee that's supposed to start meeting.
That is the county restore committee, that's a whole nother set of, that's to govern the county money that we're gonna get a little
So we
bit
gotta
each
get another
year.
one to do this one.
Not necessarily.
We can do it.
We can do it.
Okay.
Triumph money is
And the
economic.
3 things that they're looking at, and I'll just say this, Mr. Chairman, 3 things that they're looking at is regionalization of the project, the economic benefit, and the environmental benefit. That's the 3 things that they're really looking at.
And Triumph is
I
really
mean-
promoting economic development. That's
Yeah.
Triumph.
So see, we got that one study being done for the airport out here, then you got, Chris doing the
Right.
regional thing between Liberty and Gulf and Franklin, and that's another $100,000 study been going on right now. When we get the results of that study, then we need to all come together on the regional stuff and figure out which way we're going and how much money we're gonna need, and regionally, we'll submit for that. Or at least 2 of us can, Gulf and Franklin, because we are some of the 8 counties.
Well,
I got one
I'm
question, and let me ask him and I'll let you. Is that airport doing with the same as St. Joe or Gulf County?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the
Okay.
regionality we're talking about. They got a
Okay.
port, we got an
Okay.
airport, trying to put it together, do some job creation, and try to provide people with some jobs and improve our economic stability here in
Okay, I'm
Franklin
on
County
board
and
with
Gulf.
that now. I
And
know
Gulf.
some- all right, Mr. Noel.
well, I'm kind of confused because what's going on here, I know there's so many different parts that Alan just said one of them, there ain't something no guideline, well, how we gonna do something?
Well, generally, the Triumph money, it's economic development, and so, and I will say, the Triumph Board hasn't even met in an official setting, because they can't meet until the legislature actually gives them some money. So there's been a lot of conjecture about what Triumph is going to make people do, because they haven't officially sat as a board yet. But Triumph has, the few meetings that I've been to were regarding Triumph, Commissioner Senator Gates, who's sort of the father of this legislation, insisting that if you come to Triumph, you better come with a project that has other money in it, that don't expect Triumph to be the only funding source if you want to get something done. So that's where Dewberry comes in the hand and say, okay, you know, and other counties have it as an easy role. Gulf County, example, Gulf County wants to do sewer and water extension. Well, Frank County doesn't run any sewer and water, so we don't, that's not going to be one of our projects. But Gulf County can go to Triumph and say, look, we already have, you know, financing from DEP for stormwater or sewer water extensions, and so then they can go to Triumph and say, we've got matching money. For us, we don't run the big infrastructures a lot of counties run. So we are going to have to be a little more innovative where we find our matching money from. That's sort of the challenge where I think Dewberry is going to help us. You know, what else can we do besides sewer and water, which we don't operate, to go ahead and do economic development?
We could do our drainage projects so that we're so far behind on, can't we?
Yeah, I mean, stormwater drainage is not as directly connected to economic development as sewer and water lines, because, you know, people need sewer and water.
It's more
Right.
environmental and,
Yeah, I mean,
I have a question too, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Generally speaking, the consortium money will be for economic development and environmental, like
Yes.
the rest of the pot?
yes, that's correct. That's
Okay.
correct, yeah. The pot 1 and pot 3 are both treasury money, restore money, so they're going to have similar guidelines. The Triumph is something different. Triumph is really economic development, only economic development.
and I'm gonna tell you something, you sit there and you listen to all those pots and and you look out there in the audience at all those people, they're getting ready to get their fingers on some money. You know what I'm saying? And what we've gotta be careful with, we've gotta be careful that it does benefit the environment in Franklin County. It does, you know, benefit the economy, and that we join our sister counties at doing it. So, you know, I mean, right now, Gulf County is looking at trying to get this rail spur, that would help the airport and everything on that.
According to Mr. Warren Yeager, they on task of getting close to that.
Yeah,
He told me the other day, and down there when we was there,
Yeah,
this,
okay.
that's the reason was this the same one we was talking about?
Well, what we got, we can put up to put some jobs in.
That's the one we're
economic-
talking about now, to do with the airport and the rail.
No,
The rail spur.
I understand that one, talking about, that's from St. Joseph, what we got.
We have the airport, we have space at the airport, run the rail spur of the airport for a structure to be built at the airport that needs access to the port. I mean, that's the connection between the two. We can get that rail line reestablished at the airport.
I ain't talking about, I'm talking about what else we can do for this county. I ain't,
That's the challenge.
Then try to build Carabel up, we got more than 2 stores.
Well, I'm gonna tell you one
You
thing.
need a workforce. That's-
Yeah, we got 2 stores.
And Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'm gonna say, I think one of the best things that we did was move that industrial part of the airport to the front side of the airport. I think that's one of the best things that we did for the airport right there, instead of having it in that back next to that subdivision out there. So,
Yes,
that's good.
Ms. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, we're lucky in a way that we have the airport. Gulf County does not. They've got the port.
That's
And
why
so-
they need us.
So that is a great opportunity for some regional work, and they're pushing that port development.
Yeah, I
Well,
told Mr. Warren Yeager, I said, Carabel's got the port and the airport too, you know, could find something to do there, up over there.
but see,
Well,
they, it'll be regional, cause that railroad, last time it was running, it went to Chattahoochee, so it'll be going through all these other counties, small counties like Liberty.
It run way up in Georgia, didn't it?
Yeah, the rail line's still there. The spur that was taken out was the airport. That's what we've been trying to see if we can get that reestablished. But be thinking about it, gentlemen, these are big picture issues, you know, that we don't have to answer today, but one of our limitations is infrastructure as far as transportation. Workforce, we don't have a large workforce. I mean, you know, these are things you gotta be realistic about. I mean, we don't have thousands and thousands of people in Franklin County looking for a job, we have hundreds. So we gotta make sure that what we look for is an industry that services the community we have, you know, for the workforce we
I want to
have.
say this, one of the things, again, at the conference, we're able to meet with DEO. Commissioner Patterson, the chairman, could tell you, one of the things we pitched to DEO is like, okay, we need help with the seafood workers with training, but understand that not every seafood worker could be a corrections officer. So we need funding, and if we could use some of DEO's money to help, as a match, kind of, that's a way, but, I mean, we tried it. It was like we were going in front of a panel for an interview. I mean, there were like 7 people at this table, we sat down. But almost all, there was 7 or 9 people, commissioners, but almost all of them was familiar with Franklin County, believe it or not. That was very interesting. One lived in Carabel, Commissioner, and he talked to.
The one stayed on St. George Island, the one that was talking with Commissioner Parrish, he was on the island. The one that was sitting in front of us used to live in Carabel. He was
He worked for the newspaper.
newspaper. He was the newspaper
I was trying to think of who that was.
in 1979.
So we try to get them to help us with training of workforce, so.
Well, and too, the governor was there last week at the conference, because of the bill signing on the DJJ, the detention juvenile justice stuff. And he saw me and he told me that, whatever Franklin County needs, you let me know. We're here to help. So, he realizes. So hopefully we'll get some help from somewhere.
Because we can have a very philosophical debate about the future of Franklin County because it's important to you all. You all voted, elected to serve the people. But it's a challenge. We have a very valuable, the most valuable natural resource that I think the state of Florida has, the Apalachicola Bay. We want to promote that and bring it back to the health that it needs without detracting, without bringing other things in there that are going to affect it in the long run. So that's a very difficult road to go down where we support the Bay and promote the Bay, but we try to have other economic development in here that will not harm the Bay. I mean, it's a challenge. It's an even greater challenge when the state of Florida buys all the land that's not on the Bay, and so all we're left with is land along the Bay to develop. I mean, it puts you all in a very difficult role to try and do what you can to protect the Bay, but then bring other things in here. I mean, and I've certainly seen it for 28 years, and you all are going to see it for a lot longer. That's why, Commissioner Locke, I got frustrated on your behalf when we talk about, what we're going to do to improve the livelihood and the workers and the lives of the people who live here. And then when you look at the arrangement of the land we have, it's like, oh my God, how are we going to accomplish this thing? Because everything drains in the Apalachicola Bay. How are we going to get this done? It's just a...
Yeah, they had oysters out on the table that night. Me and Michael was sitting there, and everybody that walked up there, is this Apalachicola oysters? And
We could tell it was.
you could tell we could. They said no, it come from they didn't. There wasn't a whole lot of oysters ate.
We're not gonna lie about Apalachicola oysters.
No,
Now,
everybody
there's-
asked about them, and they'd say, he thinks, oh, they tell he's thinking.
It's a very challenging, something we can't solve today. Okay, let me go on a little bit briefly here. Item number 3, inform the board that it appears the University of West Florida will be the recipient of a $500,000 federal grant designed to assist all Panhandle counties diversify their economies. And this is not either Triumph or anything else. This is a separate amount of money that looks like it's going to UWF. This was a project that at one point was going to Florida's Great Northwest, a regional economic development agency for which Franklin, Gulf, and Wacola counties are not members, but we thought Florida's Great Northwest was going to receive it. That's why I went to those meetings last winter. If the grant does go to UWF, we'll have to see how much outreach UWF does to Franklin, Wacola, and Gulf counties. This grant could be one of the tools used to develop ideas that are eventually submitted to Triumph. So I don't quite know where it's going to land, but if it goes to UWF, we just need to make sure they remember us.
And as you said, Alan, and correctly stated, is they're supposed to be trying to help us diversify economies, which directly correlates with economic development, which then again turns around, as you pointed out here, directly points toward the Triumph funds and getting the money we need to make some of the changes, subtle changes that we can make and try to bring jobs in here. So we need to just be on top of that and make sure that they come down here and listen to us and see what they can do to help us come up with some ideas of job generation and economic development.
And we'll know within 2 to 3 months if UWF is getting the money. Still hasn't been awarded yet, but that's where it looks like it's going.
Mr. Chairman, I have a suggestion too. If it's Franklin, Gulf, and Wakulla, we should get those 3 counties together and
Yes.
approach West Florida.
That's a good point. That's good. Now, I met with, the reason I know what I met with Sheree Keeler, who's the Wacola County Historic Coordinator this last week, with some other people. And so, she and I are trying to work on this, and Warren Yeager's already well into the loop, yes, as we get closer. In fact, Bill Williams was a county commissioner in Gulf County, and he was one of the initial promoters of this $500,000 Treasury federal grant. He's no longer in Gulf County, but he's still pushing the idea. So I think we have some help making sure we're staying part
Give
of it.
me and walk.
You have to watch Bill Williams, though, because he'll be pushing it west.
Well, hopefully he won't forget where he came from. We'll see. All right, that's almost for my restore update. The next items, number 4, unrelated to restore. Mr. Marone asked me to investigate the ability for the county to receive some newly authorized FWC derelict vessel funds. I did make contact with FWC staff. Sometime in late July, the official notice of the availability funds will be released. There will be about 45 days for all counties of Florida to submit requests to receive funds for derelict vessel removal. FWC is sure the demand will far exceed the supply, so each county will most likely only get a portion of the funds it needs. FWC staff is providing a list to the county, of every county, including Franklin, on all the boats on its derelict vessel list that are eligible for removal. The county then must contact a qualified contractor and get a price for each vessel we want removed. When the application period opens, the county will then submit a letter with the name of the vessel and the removal cost to FWC. FWC will award the county funds, and we will go down the list to remove the vessels for as far as the money goes. FWC funds 75% of the removal cost, but Franklin County can add tipping fees to the cost, and then we could waive those tipping fees to make up for at least part of the county's 25% cost. So this is not a free program. There will be a cost, but depending on the tipping fees and the weight of the vehicle, or weight of the vessel, we might be able to not have to put cash out. Considering there's only $1.4 million statewide for derelict vessel removal, it's unlikely Franklin County will receive any more than $100,000 in FFC funds. The list of vessels haven't been brought in yet. I will say Michael Marone's staff, Roxy Allen's son is Captain John Allen, and he is the one who's assisting us in getting the list. So we have some assistance from FWC staff because of people who live in the community. There are some boats that are an eyesore, there's some boats that are navigational hazards, there's some boats that are environmental hazards. So FWC is going to assist us in evaluating these things, but ultimately the county commission, and we'll bring you the list of vessels, will have to determine, sort of what you want to go through first. Navigation is probably the biggest thing we got to try and remove. But when we get that list, we'll go through it with you all. I will say the last time we did derelict vessel removal, there was a local contractor in the county, Harris Brothers, who gave us quotes. They're no longer in business. So we are going to have to try and find somebody who can give us some good solid quotes, who has the equipment to remove these sunken vessels.
One in Carabel,
Well, you can tell me after the meeting. if you
yeah, I
want to.
will.
Yeah.
Trying to think.
But we need to have somebody because when they give us a number, that's the number that they're going to get paid. It's not like, okay, this is an approximate. No, that's going to go on a grant, and that's what it's going to be.
Alan, real quick on that subject, if I might, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
The Gulf Environmental Benefit Fund,
Yes.
some of those funds can't be used to help clean up the environment, to get rid of some of these derelict vessels that's not funded through FWC?
It's certainly possible, Commissioner, until you just thought of that. That's a great idea.
We're developing a list, and I think the last time we did this, we got $10,000 out of that fund, which don't remove many vessels. There's a lot of vessels that need to be removed from the bay and removed from up the river, as many of you previously discussed, and I think we ought to apply for some of these Gulf Environmental Benefit Fund, which is what that's for, is to help clean up the environment.
Right.
To get some of these derelict vessels and these tanks and all this stuff out of our waterways,
Right.
which improves the water quality.
That's a great idea, and as soon as I finish my report, I'm going to call Stella Dewberry and say, hey, look, let's see if we can get one more thing in there. That's a great idea.
And we'll be making a list and try to get this stuff done.
Right,
And
right.
Again, there's so many pots of money, but if you don't stay on top and you don't reach and look at all this stuff, then you miss out as a small county in our limited amount of staff and all we have. I mean, I understand all that, but we need to start tapping into what we entitled to.
Right, that's
Mr.
correct.
Chairman, I have a question too.
Yes, sir.
When will the list be ready of derelict vessels, and
I'm
what's the
just-
timeframe for these grants?
Well, the time frame is that they're going to let us know. The letter to all the counties will come out sometimes the end of July, so let's say it's July 5th, so maybe hopefully in 3 weeks we'll get the letter. Then there are 45 days from whenever we receive the notice to apply. So if we get the letter at the end of July, it'll be sometime at the beginning of September when the deadline to turn that in back to FWC. FWC will then go through, add up all 67 counties, and everybody's applied, and do a prorated share for everybody, because every county is entitled to some money. And so I suspect it'll be sometime in the fall before they finish all that calculations.
All right,
It's a-
Michael,
it's-
go ahead. Go ahead, Smokey.
It's a huge issue down South Florida.
Right.
Huge. I mean, we think we got a lot of derelict vessels, we don't. It's huge, and that's where a lot of the money goes because of the population and the voters and the problem they got. I think, like I said earlier, I think last time we got $10,000 and we moved 2 boats or something. But there's 14 or 15 or 16 around here that needs to be removed. But, and if that doesn't work out, we always want to keep on the back of our mind of using some consortium funds, which It's supposed to be used for the environment.
That's
I
a great
mean,
idea also, because that money is
so
coming to
this,
you.
this project that we're talking about here needs to be set down, and then it needs to be looked at from all these different funding mechanisms until we find one that plugs in and fits.
Okay.
So we don't want to, when we get the list and all, let's put that aside as a bigger project
Yes.
and get this stuff, because there's a boat, all know, there's boats up the river, old shrimp boats, all kinds of stuff that needs to be got out of our water system here. And there's so many different pots of money, but we can just make that a project and then figure out where that project's gonna plug into without having to use our local dollars, because our local dollars
Consortium
are minimal.
money. Right, consortium money might be a good path.
There's several different avenues we can go down. I just wanna put
Okay.
a place card in there, so to speak, and let's find a funding mechanism to fund the project.
And while we're doing this, because my boat ramp money, FWC, I give it to Mark Kerman to get, check on that, because it's not long for it, but they had that money in there to do boat ramps. And the way he talked, I could get the one done in East Point to accommodate the other one.
Okay.
So he told me, so stay on that, because he said it's gonna come out here shortly. Yes, ma'am? Come forward to the mic. Speak your name.
Anita Grove, Aner. Just so you know, there is a Coast Guard effort going on, I believe, this week or next week. I think it's July 11th, to pull out one of the old boats, I think up Sauls Creek, that aluminum or metal hull boat. That one's coming out. And there's one in Carabel. I'll have to send Alan the list.
They know you can't miss one in Carabel, Sugar. It's right in the middle of the river,
Yeah.
son.
It'd been one that was there for quite a while.
It's been there
so,
for quite a while,
yeah.
turned upside down, about 70
Yeah.
foot long.
But I'll send you.
Coast Guard's being very, I appreciate what they're doing, but they're very restrictive on what they do. They have to have an environmental hazard, there has to be oil pollution money. The Coast Guard gets oil pollution money. So the vessels you're doing there, we try to get them to do more, but yeah, they are doing these two, and only these two. In fact, one of them, they may be lifting up, pumping the bilges out, and then putting the vessel back down.
The one in Carabel,
They said they're gonna give it to the Osborne and the Osborne.
Okay.
I know the one in Carabel you're talking about, they're supposed to pump it up. Then FWC money's supposed to help them take it on out.
Okay.
It's been there a while.
It's been there a while.